Welcome to our channel, a space where real people share what they've seen, felt, and endured in the world's most mysterious places. Every story here is based on true events, submitted by witnesses themselves. But to respect privacy, some names and details have been changed. Tonight, you'll hear a chilling tale from the heart of Taipei. The kind of story that makes you question what's real long after the credits rolled that I didn't believe in ghosts. At least, not until I checked into a world-famous hotel and discovered that sometimes, luxury is only skin-deep, and darkness hides just beyond the reaches of city lights. It began on a rainy Tuesday. Alex had just finished a draining work assignment, and the promise of a 5-star retreat in the city's glittering cine district felt like the perfect reset. The Grand Hyatt Taipei, tall, glassy, reflecting the restless sky, was everything the travel blogs promised. Impeccable rooms, a lobby humming with elegance, attentive staff who greeted every guest like an old friend. Alex brought only a small suitcase and a mental note to treat himself. Late checkout, city view, room service. After a smooth check-in, he ascended to his floor, finding himself alone in an unusually hushed hallway. The air felt charged, static clinging to his arms. Maybe it was the storm brewing outside, thunder rolling quietly over distant mountains, but the hotel seemed to exhale with every flash of lightning. The first hours were uneventful. Phone calls, a long shower, brushing teeth with the city skyline winking back through the window. The rain grew heavier, a white noise comfort. The only oddity, an antique-looking mirror over the desk, so perfectly polished it seemed almost too clear. Alex shrugged off the creepiness and scrolled through emails, flipping TV channels just for background noise. Exhaustion soon won out. By midnight, Alex set alarms, turned off the main lights, and crawled under a blanket that felt softer than any he'd ever owned. The wind howled, urging him to sleep. That's when the knocking started. It wasn't loud, not at first. Just a precise rapping on the heavy hotel door. 3, maybe 4 soft knocks. Not enough to be a mistake, not frantic, but measured. Alex tensed, listening. Sometimes hotels were noisy late at night. Staff, guests returning from bars. But the corridor outside was silent, the air still. He lay in bed, waiting for movement. None came. He looked through the peephole, only carpet, lit dimly, no footsteps. He dismissed it as nerves. But 10 minutes later came another knock, slightly louder, as if the visitor was deciding how hard to push. This time, chills crawled up Alex's spine. He checked his phone. 12:37 a.m. No new messages or missed calls. Pulling the blanket up tighter, he tried to focus on the wind and ignore the pounding of his heart. Sometimes, he thought, imagination created monsters. But the knocking repeated. Alex bolted upright, steeling himself. He tiptoed to the door, peered out. Again, nothing but empty hall, the faint aroma of cleaning products lingering in the stillness. He waited, heart stuttering. Then, from the bathroom, came the faintest whisper. Not a word, not a voice, but the sound of something moving, almost like a sigh. The hairs on Alex's arms stood straight up. He turned on his bedside lamp, convincing himself it was the air vent, the plumbing, anything rational. He went to the bathroom, flicked on the light, and saw nothing amiss, except, as he turned away, the old mirror flickered, as if something brushed past it. It was only for a second, but enough to freeze him in place. He looked again, just his own reflection, bloodless and wide-eyed. 10 more minutes passed. He braced himself, trying mindfulness apps, focusing on his breath, but the sense of being watched, intensely, from the room's shadowed corners, would not fade. He picked up his phone to call the front desk, but stopped. What would he say? Someone's knocking, but they're not there? He would sound crazy. He tried to laugh, his voice shaking. Then, as if cued by fear, the knocking grew bolder. 1, 2, 3 sharp raps. Simultaneously, the bedside lamp flickered, plunging the room into near darkness. Panic crashed in. Alex sprang from the bed, heart pounding, feeling for the main light switch. It buzzed, hesitated, then flickered to life. He scanned the door, nothing, but he saw a fleeting shadow dart away from the crack beneath it, fast as a falling raindrop. Alex's mind raced. Was he dreaming? Someone pranking him? He stepped to the window and peered down at Taipei's glowing veins of traffic, feeling tiny and alone. He turned to the desk and saw, for an instant, a pale, smudged fingerprint on the mirror, circling slowly as if drawn by a child. Shivering, he wiped it away, trying to rationalize, but hours dragged by. Every squeak of the building, every tap from the HVAC, every brush of rain on glass set his nerves alight. He never truly slept that night, only dozing off between rushes of adrenaline and searching for comfort that never came. At dawn, Alex packed hurriedly. Downstairs, he requested a new room, trying to act casual. The clerk, without surprise, nodded and handed over new keys, as if this happened more often than anyone admitted. He spent the rest of his stay with every lamp on, salt discreetly poured by the door, and a habit of glancing at mirrors out of the corner of his eye. What if, just when you think you're safe in the comfort of luxury, the silence in your room becomes a melody played by hands you cannot see, and laughter you know couldn't possibly belong to anyone or anything alive? My second night at the Grand Hyatt Taipei was supposed to pass without incident. The storm outside had settled to a gentle drizzle, the city's kaleidoscope of neon and headlights smudged against the window pane. I had business meetings all day, and by the time I returned, even the chatter of the lobby seemed distant, like voices underwater. Everything was meant for peace. My suite, a tastefully furnished expanse of creamy carpet and dark wood, welcomed me with a bouquet of local flowers and the faintest whiff of sandalwood from the vents. The staff had left a handwritten card, wishing me a restful evening. I ran a hot bath, letting tension slip away, then closed the thick curtains and dimmed all but a single bedside lamp. By midnight, I expected nothing more than silence. But as the city's lights faded beneath the rain, and my mind drifted near sleep, a new sound crept in, so delicate I thought it might be the wind. But it wasn't. It was a music box, a tune slow and hypnotic, winding and rewinding itself somewhere close by. I sat up, listening with scrunched eyebrows. The music kept flowing, notes sweet and tinny, too close for comfort, yet far enough to be untraceable. I checked my laptop, my phone, the suite's amenities. Nothing electronic could make that sound. I pressed my ear to the walls. The tune grew sharper, dancing just out of reach, as if orbiting me. Then, from the ceiling, a brief scuttling of footsteps, rapid, light, the playful running of a child. My heart leaped. I stood and opened the hall door. Only the faint hush of the corridor greeted me. I double-checked the windows, then the closets, half mocking my own paranoia. When I flicked off the bathroom light, the music box chirped a few notes faster, followed by unmistakable giggling. It was high-pitched, gleeful, genuine, chilling, echoing once, then twice. The laughter seemed to move, circling the bed, never stopping, as if whoever owned it was just out of sight, always hiding at the corner of my eye. Sweat pricked at my brow. I called the lobby in a shaky voice, trying to camouflage my fear as confusion. The night attendant hesitated, then quietly asked if I'd like to switch rooms. "It happens," she said softly, "in the older sections. Leave a bit of salt at your door, and keep the lamp on until morning." Trying to follow this strange advice, I used a mini creamer cup of salt from room service, sprinkling a white circle by the threshold. The music box notes faded, but the laughter didn't. For the next hour, every time I closed my eyes, the giggling returned, sometimes more distant, sometimes pressed right against my ear. A little after 2 a.m., the air thickened, colder than the AC's chill. My mind swirled with memories of old folk stories and my grandmother's warnings about child spirits, the mischievous ones who hate to be left alone. Dread pooled inside me. I turned on every light, but shadows continued to creep, threatening to pull my gaze into corners darker than should be possible in a lit room. Finally, exhausted beyond fear, I wrapped myself in the comforter and stared at the ceiling, heart pounding at every creak of the building or faraway door. At some point, sleep claimed me, not restful, but fitful, filled with sharp images. A faceless child at the window, a spinning music box on the nightstand, a reflection in the mirror that smiled when I didn't. I woke with the dawn, shaky and unrest, but the world had returned to ordinary colors and sounds. Everything paranormal belonged to the night now, and the only evidence, besides my exhaustion, was the tiny ring of salt, scattered and broken across the carpet, as if small feet had disturbed it while I slept. Later, reading online, I discovered this was common, a known phenomenon among guests who ignore the advice to keep their night light burning. Even staff members shared stories of laughter, phantom music, and poltergeist pranks. For some, this hotel is just another place to stay. For others, like me, it's a place where the veil between ordinary and extraordinary disappears long before morning. Here, in the quiet between midnight and dawn, you learn that the prettiest melodies are sometimes played for ears that shouldn't be listening, and laughter isn't always a sign of joy. Sometimes you just wish the night would end. In every room at the Grand Hyatt, mirrors hang on the walls, not just to reflect city lights, but to hide secrets. Some nights, after midnight, it's not your own face you see staring back. Sometimes, if you're unlucky enough, the mirror becomes a door. On my third night in Taipei, the weather shifted. After 2 days of subtropical sun, a heavy storm rolled in, rattling against the windows with thunder that seemed to shake the whole building. My business was finally done. Exhaustion mingled with lingering curiosity after the music box and laughter the night before. Each hallway felt longer, each shadow deeper. I returned to my suite just before midnight, arms full of souvenirs and a local dessert packed in a wax paper box. The air in my room was cool, filled with the sharp, clean scent of the storm outside. I barely noticed how the mirror above the desk reflected every light, city lightning, my own lamp, twisting and multiplying them across the ceiling. The effect was mesmerizing at first, hypnotic. Settling in, I set my phone to vibrate, intent on reading before sleep. But a chill moved through the room, a cold, heavy hush not caused by the air conditioner. I pulled the blanket closer and tried to focus on my book, letting the rain's drumming soothe me. Time warped, each minute slower than the last. Suddenly, the lights blinked once, twice, then stabilized. I chalked this up to the storm, but my nerves weren't convinced. The mirror above the desk flashed and dimmed with each surge, scattering ghostly shapes across the walls. Minutes ticked by. I eyed the mirror, feeling foolish but unable to ignore the way its surface seemed to flicker in tandem with the storm. Then, from the depth of silence, a faint scraping sound, like fingernails over glass. My breath stopped. I stared at my reflection, half expecting it to move on its own. It started as a subtle distortion. My reflected face grew almost invisible in the blue electric night, fading behind a growing fog. I leaned closer, convinced it was condensation or dust, but the image behind the mist became clearer. A figure in rumpled clothes, lips cracked and pale, eyes ringed in bruised purple, standing just behind my shoulder. I spun around. The room was empty. Looking back, the mirror was normal again. My heart hammered so fast I could taste copper. Trying to laugh this off, I messaged a friend. Another weird night here. If I vanish, check the mirrors. She sent crying emojis and ghost stickers, but that did little to calm the fear. I left the TV on for noise. Around 1 a.m., things worsened. The rain intensified, wind howling against the glass. The mirror's surface shimmered as though underwater. For a moment, the overhead light flickered, bathing the room in trembling shadow. That's when I saw it, a slow movement in the reflection, the blurry shape of a man, hanging askew as if suspended, head turned painfully to the side, eyes half closed, mouth parted in an impossible grin. Frozen, I watched as he moved, or rather swayed, without rhythm, silent except for lips straining to form words. I stifled a scream and bolted for the bathroom, slamming the door behind me. In the harsh bathroom light, reality snapped back to normal. My reflection was just me once more, pale, wild-eyed, trembling. But when I stepped out again, the room was cold, so cold my breath curtained the air. The mirror drew my eyes, no matter how I resisted. I forced myself to sit at the desk, staring at my laptop, pretending the reflection no longer existed. I typed notes, scrolled mindlessly, but each time I glanced up, the room behind me seemed darker, emptier, and I could swear I heard soft whispering, words I could almost understand, but which vanished if I tried to listen too closely. Then, the chair behind me creaked, slowly, as though someone had sat down. My pulse punched in my chest. I raised my eyes. In the mirror, the man's head was slowly rotating, skin straining with the motion, his hollow gaze locking with mine. "You can't leave," the voice rasped, but not through my ears, straight into my mind, as clear as memory. Adrenaline surged. I stumbled to the door, barely managing to grab my wallet and shoes, and dashed into the hallway barefoot. The plush carpet muffled every step. The lights in the corridor were unwavering, almost too bright. I ran all the way to the elevator, pressing the button over and over. Seconds dragged out like hours until the doors opened, and I escaped, heart slamming against my ribs. Down in the lobby, I tried to explain in broken Mandarin to the night clerk. She nodded, no surprise in her eyes, just sympathy. "It is an old building," she said softly, "and some shadows do not sleep. Would you like us to call a temple for blessing?" I left the hotel 20 minutes later, the rain soaking through thin clothes as I searched for another place to spend the night. Even now, years later, I remember everything. The storm, the unyielding cold, the mirror that looked back with someone else's face. Since then, I've read as many stories as I've found. Others see different figures, hear different words, but the eyes are always the same. Wounded, knowing, full of sorrow and warning. Grand Hyatt Taipei, for all its brilliance, holds dangers that no rating or review can explain, that if you stay in a hotel built on old graves, in a city that never truly sleeps, beware the moments after midnight. Especially when the rain falls and the mirror stares back, sometimes it reflects a story you'll never quite leave behind. And sometimes the mirror is not just glass at all. Thank you for watching this story. If it hooked you, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. This way, you won't miss new real stories from people who've experienced the unexplained. Hit the notification bell to get updates on our latest releases. And share your own mysterious encounters in the comments. Your story could be featured in a future episode.